A mock draft was done by another Locked On Podcast Network channel. And I have to say, I'm a little upset with some of the selections that we got being the 16th overall pick. I'll talk more about this here on Locked On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to Locked On Blues. I'm your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues. Here, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today on Locked On Blues, I'm going to be talking to you about the Locked On Senators mock draft that they did, where they let the fans decide, and I'm a little upset about a couple of things about this. I will be talking about if you could bring back any player that used to play on the Blues that's active in the NHL right now, who would you bring back? And I'm hyped for the Winter Classic. The NHL, right before I began to record, put out a video about the Winter Classic, and it has me pumped up. I even threw on my custom Blues jersey that I had custom designed. It's one of a kind. But I was like, let's go. And I'm like, wait, it's in December, and it's literally like May, but it's fine. Before I go any further, I do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So, as I mentioned, Locked On Senators did a fan-based mock draft. And I will be at the draft covering it for the St. Louis Blues and the Blues only. And it is such a cool thing because I wanted to be able to, experience what a draft is like in person. And obviously, I don't live in St. Louis, but I love the Blues. And this is my team. This is the team that I'm a fan of, first and foremost. And I think that, saving up money to head out to St. Louis is a little, it's expensive. So Vegas was a little cheaper. So that helped. But anywho, the mock draft. So obviously, like the first couple picks, like, like who you're going to get. But then, and this is where I got very frustrated. Sam Dickinson, the defenseman who I want for the Blues, he is basically off of because on Twitter, when you do a poll, you have 4 different options. He is off at the 7th overall, which goes to the Ottawa Senators. And I'm like, listen, I really want him. He is a player, and I know that he's probably not going to fall, but a girl can be hopeful, right? So then you go to us, obviously 16th overall, and I made a comment because I saw this and I said, I'm hoping Sam Dickinson falls to us. And they said, whatever the Blues' Stanley Cup odds were in 2019, when they were in last place, this is even more unlikely. I'll be surprised if Dickinson goes outside the top 8, probably top 5, which is true. But again, the Blues could always make a trade and they could get a higher draft spot or draft selection, I should say. I just feel like he could change up the defense, and I really, really want him. But anywho, we got some options of some guys I really haven't talked about just because, again, some of the players that I want, I just feel like we're able to get. I think there's going to be a lot of players who are going to fall in this draft. I do. I have a feeling it's not a high intensity kind of draft class, to say the least. And it's not on a diss on any of the players, but when we look at last year's draft class and all the talent that came out of that, you're not going to get the same caliber of talent. So I think some of these guys that, right now are projected to go like 9th overall are going to end up falling. I really do. So this was our selection of players. And again, I'm not upset about it, but I just don't think that we're going to end up getting these players. So we had forward Trevor Connolly, and that was a 19%, and he's a forward. And then we had Emil Hemming, forward 11%, Charlie Ellick, who is a right-handed defenseman at 11%. And this was interesting. This was the popular one voted by the fans of the Locked On Senators podcast, was Beckett Seneke with 59%. The thing is, and I said I was going to talk about this, when you look at the draft class and you look at all the potential guys that the Blues could realistically get, I don't think they're going to go with a winger. I don't. I think they're going to end up going with a defenseman still, even if they stay at 16, just because I feel like that's what they need to improve on the most. Obviously, you want to get a sniper, right? No doubt about that. But that's what free agency is for. I did mention yesterday about all the guys that, the Blues could go after in free agency. With the draft pick, it's about long-term development because it's not going to be a player that you're going to have in a couple seasons. It might take longer or it might take those couple seasons, but it's not going to be a player that you're going to have instantly. And that's the main focus I want to get at on this podcast is when you think draft, think maybe 3 years. Maybe it could be 2, but think at least 3 years. So in 3 years from now, I mean, our defensemen on the team are old right now. Not to be that person, but they're old. It is what it is. And I know you're going to be like, oh, Matthew Kessel. I know Matthew Kessel isn't old. And I know Tyler Tucker isn't old. But we have a lot of old guys with Justin Folk, Colton Parayko, Torrey Krug, which I don't want to say. But we have some older guys, right? Nicoletti. But when I think of a draft pick, I think of the future. And I think that defense will always be the number one forefront for the St. Louis Blues. I mean, we're not bad when it comes to developing players, right? Kyrou, I know when people are going to say, oh, Jordan Kyrou sucks. He doesn't. He scores at least 30 goals a season. He's not a bad player. We have, again, Jake Neighbors, who has shown what you can do in a rookie season, which has been impressive. Nitika Alexandrov. I mean, again, we are able to develop these players and turn them into NHL, not superstars, but good NHL players, which is a plus because there's a lot of teams in the NHL that literally do not know how to develop players. And you just see like a bunch of guys on the ice that just look like a mess. We actually have good development within our players, and that goes along with the T-Birds. And I see the T-Birds more than I see the Blues just because I feel like the AHL teams are kind of more places that I'm able to get to. And the one thing I look at when I look at our prospects and I look at our guys that we might, call up is can they keep up in an NHL caliber type of situation? And when I watched the T-Birds this season in person, especially going against the Calder Cup defending Hershey Bears, Tyler Tucker looked phenomenal. And I came on this podcast and I said it about Tucker. I said he is able to keep up and maintain and look good, and he's able to play tough defense. That is something that's going to go a long way when it comes to the future of the Blues, is the fact that we're able to look at our prospects and say, you know what? These are guys that are able to develop and play in NHL games and be successful. I mean, even Matthew Kessel, we drafted him a little bit later than I would have liked. Sometimes like when you go past the 3rd round, I get a little bit nervous about, was this guy going to pan out? But again, Tux was a 7th rounder. So it goes to show that with good development, good coaching, a good system, you were still able to get a lot of usage, good word on that one, usage out of some of these players. I'm not going to lie and say that for this draft, I'm going to be upset if we get like a winger or we get a center. I don't think we're going to go for a center, honestly. We don't need to, and we don't need a goalie. But right now, I feel fine because we all know that one day when Binnington's gone, if Hofer begins playing the way that he is and continues on that way, I should say, then he will be the main goalie. I mean, it's funny. I think back to Jake Allen, and it's something against, Jake Allen, but obviously he won the cup with us too, backing up Binnington. But Hofer just gives me so much hope and promise, and it's exciting watching him. He is one of those players that honestly, like I'm going to say it, is learning from one of the best in the league, and that will continue to grow him as a player. And you can't have a better mentor than Jordan Binnington. And that's the thing with Binnington is that at the end of the day, you have a really solid goalie Tatum. And I think that, You can't go wrong with that. Words can't describe how excited I am about, the Blues' future, right? And what will happen with them. And I think at the end of the day, too, and I was thinking back to it, when Allen, and the thing is, and it's something against Jake Allen, and the reason why I bring him up is because I just think that Binnington obviously came in. I mean, I know that he was having quite a tough time. I know, and the thing is, we did draft him in the 2008 entry level draft, and it's like I know he spent a lot of time with us, and I'm very thankful for him, right? When it comes to our players in general. But it is one of those things where, at the end of the day, Hofer just gives me hope for the future. And I think that, we saw a lot of good out of him, right? But I don't, okay. And I know I'm venting, and here's the thing. I know Allen ended up not, he regressed, right? And we had Binnington, start over Allen, and then all the magic began happening. I don't like that when I think about the end of Binnington's career because I know eventually that might it just sucks because like Allen played so well for us, like for so many years. So my whole vent on that basically is like it just sucks when you see an athlete that you love get old. It sucks. Wow, that was a vent about the mock draft that just ended up me just talking about the fact that I missed Jake Allen. Um he's like in his like lower 30s now. So he's getting up there in age. But it's like I grew up with Jake Allen because he made his debut in 2012. So I was 13. Yeah. So I really did grow up with Jake Allen. So wow. Uh look at me just going down memory lane. But anywho, yeah. Anyways, FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Listen, I literally love FanDuel. Sometimes, like, I'm not going to lie, I do bet on the Cards money line. I know they're not the hottest team in baseball, but I mean, at the end of the day, like, I do it anyways. And okay, also, I will be having JD on the podcast because I do love our City Connect jerseys, for the Lou. The Lou, like, I like, and I'm actually in the process of buying one. So does anybody else like it? Are you guys Cardinals fans too, or just Blues fans? I'm both, but just let me know. Okay. So I had a question, and this was a question that I was really interested in because when I'm thinking about, just free agency and ways that the Blues can be better, I kind of think about players that are active in the NHL that used to be on the Blues or drafted by the Blues that are not with the Blues that I would want on the Blues. That was a lot of saying Blues within that. But the reason why I bring this up is because there's a couple players that come to my mind. And I asked you on Twitter at Locked On Blues because I was curious. I'm not gonna lie. There was one player that came to my mind that personally I had, and only one person said it. So who was the person that I want to be on the St. Louis Blues again? Can you guess? It is Tage Thompson. He's now on the Buffalo Sabres, but I am such a fan of Tage Thompson. Obviously, I know he's with the Sabres, and I get that, but like we're just being hypothetical right now. 2016 draft, 26 overall, first round. He played with us for a season. Kind of. Well, yeah. Yeah. Not the full season, like 41 games played. But the thing about Tage Thompson is I am just such a fan of him. And it sucks that he's not with us. And like I'm looking at him on the Sabres all the time. And whenever I watch, because I watch like random hockey games, and I'm always like, oh man, this sucks. But here's the thing. When we made basically the trade to the Sabres in 2018, okay. It just I I laugh now, but we did get Vladimir Zabuka, and then we got Patrick Berglund, and we got a 2019 first round draft pick and a 2021 second round pick. And we also got Ryan O'Reilly. So yeah, I mean, that was good, but it still sucks. Like, I want Tage Thompson. So I'm curious if there was any player that you could have that used to be on the Blues. And I think the thing is, and I did bring up Jake Allen. I know he's still an active goalie at the Montreal Canadiens, but it's like I wouldn't want him. You know what I'm saying? It's like I'm happy with our goalie Tatum. And I know what you're going to say. Hale. We already have, Robert Thomas on our first line, centering, obviously. We then have Captain Braden Shen on the second, Kevin Hayes, and then Nathan Walker. Where would you put Tage? Well, that's a good question. Hypothetically speaking, could you put him on the second, move Shen to the third, and put Hayes as a winger on the fourth and have Walker center? Is that crazy? Now, I know this is not going to happen, but why do I bring this up? Well, free agency. And also, like, anything can happen in the game of hockey, which we know. And I think at the end of the day, it's fun to have these kind of conversations because, like, there's times where we still really miss our players. I know I do all the time. And another guy that I'm getting is Alex Pietrangelo, who was on the Vegas Golden Knights. This is a good one. Obviously, I miss our former captain. And there was a part of me for a while that did want him back. I mean, I love that guy. But do I think he would fit on the team now? I don't know. And that's also a tough thing to I don't know. Have teams brought back their former captains ever? Is that a thing? I mean, that's an interesting one, right? But I mean, I just the list goes on and on of guys that we could bring back. And I think right now, he's good with the Golden Knights, and I'm happy for him. Vince Dunn is another guy. I know he's with the Seattle Kraken now. And again, defense, still young. He's only 27. And, he's been playing good hockey. Okay. I'm not upset. I mean, in the 2015 entry level draft, he was the 56 overall in the second round. And I mean, he didn't play badly for us, right? He played 4 seasons. Obviously won the cup with us. Would I be upset having him back? No. I mean, he's putting up great numbers now at the crack and better than he did with us. So I'm like, okay, Vince. But I asked you guys because I genuinely am curious. Is this the possibility that we could have one of our former guys come back? But it is weird how they're getting older. And I'm like, okay, we want to get younger, but I don't think 26 and 27 are bad ages. Vince Dunn would probably be the most realistic that we could bring back in terms of getting him in the lineup and not upsetting anybody. Because I'm sure Captain Braden Shen, I like how I call him Captain Braden Shen, but I'm sure he wouldn't like that either. Being knocked down to the third line, I'm sure he would absolutely love, which sucks. But let's go take a deeper look at Vince Dunn, because I am kind of now debating about if this could happen or not. And if this does happen, here's the thing. This team's going to get better. I mean, any addition you can make to the defense right now will make the team better. So Dunn, he did sign a 4-year contract with the Kraken. Money, 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 whatever. The thing about it is, and this is what makes me nervous, it is 4 years, and he signed it last year. So if you do the math, can I do the math? That's a good question if I can do the math. I believe it will end on the 2026-2027 season. Now, he does have a no move / no trade clause. Yep. So, I mean, he would have to say, yeah, I'm going to be back with the Blues. But here's the thing, too. And this is where I think things could, work out in our favor. Again, I talked about this yesterday with, Brady Tkachuk. The Kraken, I know they went to the playoffs like once or whatever, twice maybe. I could care less about Seattle. And I know the Blues haven't been in the playoffs in 2 years, right? He did win a cup with us, so, like, that goes for something. And besides that even, the Blues are a better team. On paper, we do have better talent than the Kraken. I think that the Blues are a more appealing option, and especially, oh God, why am I doing this? Let's just say we get Brady Tkachuk. Like, of course, he's gonna be like, "Oh yeah, I want to come back to the Blues." I just think that we need to think of ourselves as a higher organization. And I know this is like off-season chat, and what I'm saying does make sense because with whatever player we get, if we get a guy during free agency, the same thing will apply. That we are an appealing team for these players. Players would want to come here and play for us. I really do believe that. I feel that and I know that because the St. Louis Blues, despite what you think, despite the fact of, oh, there's so much they need to do. Yes, there is a lot that they need to do. But when you have an aggressive free agency period where you're able to sign guys that are stars in the league, potential stars, and guys that have great, great, great experience playing, you're going to become an attractive team. And when you become an attractive team, players are going to want to come here. I mean, you can laugh all you want, but we had one of the best NHL players, actually not one. We had the best NHL player in history play for us. Despite the fact that it was 18 games, he still played for us because the St. Louis Blues are a team that players want to play for. When you think about all the greats in the league, right? You have one thing in common. A lot of them have played for the Blues. So I said what I said on that one. And it gets me so annoyed because, all the time you hear the same thing. Oh, well, teams want to play for the Blackhawks, the Bruins. I mean, not teams, players. Players want to play for the Blues too. That's all I'm going to say on that. Okay. Before I talk about my hype for the Winter Classic, I just want to give another plug. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On Blues on Twitter. My Twitter at Haley T. Simon. Listen, I've said this once and I'll say it again because I feel like sometimes people get confused when they're like, oh, Haley, you like the Blues? Yes, I do. Despite the fact that I do not live in St. Louis, I am a Blues fan. And I don't know how many times I can say that. And another thing I want to say too is thank you to my everydayers for sticking with me on this podcast. When I first began doing this podcast like a year ago, I was so nervous because I have never been on camera before and I was stuttering on words, which kind of sometimes led to me mispronouncing things, not intentionally, but because I was nervous. But I feel so comfortable now. So, yes, there's been a lot of growth within this podcast in the past year. And I think that it's really cool to look back at the progress and see, how much this has really grown and how much I have changed with my comfortability. And I do appreciate it because I was terrified being like, okay, I don't live in St. Louis, but I'm a Blues fan. And I think everyone's going to hate me. So I just want to come on here and just be very transparent because at the end of the day, yeah, just something I wanted to tell you all. So anyways, I am hyped for the Winter Classic. I don't know if I can play a video on here, so I'm not going to do it because I don't want to get like copyrighted. But the Blues and the Blackhawks are going to be in the Winter Classic. And the NHL put out a little promo video. It was about like 15 seconds or so, saying that tickets will be on sale on June 14th. And the Winter Classic is on December 31st, which kind of is annoying because I'm like, that's not like the Winter Classic. Like the Winter Classic is on January 1st. So I'm like, what are we doing here? But I mean, whatever. I am so, so, so excited. And I am really debating on going. I really am. The thing too is there's nothing better than watching outdoor hockey. And this has been something that I like that the NHL is doing, that they're incorporating more outdoor games, and you can love them or hate them. I think it's so fun. I mean, when I think about all these players, especially the ones from Canada or colder states, like, here in Missouri or, even in like places like Minnesota, a lot of these guys, they skate outdoors and that's how they've learned to skate. And that's what they do for fun with, pick up hockey games. And I think it just brings an element to, the game, and it just gives it a different kind of feel. I think that it's special that, we're going to be in the Winter Classic. I mean, listen, I love that they keep on putting us in the Winter Classic because it makes me feel recognized by the NHL that the Blues are a team that the NHL cares about. I mean, we can jokingly say that, we're one of the, I know we're not the original six. I know we came in 67, but like we are like one of the like more original teams in the NHL. Like, you know what I mean? And it just goes to show that the NHL, I think, does see that. I know it's gonna be the Connor Bedard show, and I know I can't be annoyed about it, and I'm gonna try not to be. I really am. And I was like debating on, is it worth, getting this invested into it, knowing that the whole focus will be about Connor Bedard. But then I thought of something, and this is what got me excited. What if the focus on the Blues becomes about Jake Neighbors and Connor Bedard? I mean, Neighbors is young. I mean, not as young as Bedard, but I mean, he is like our young, like rising star. And I know we were saying, oh, Haley, it's Robert Thomas season. It is always Robert Thomas season. So that doesn't change. But I mean, you think about it, it's just going to be such a cool matchup. I think we're going to be the team that comes out victorious. I'm a little biased on that one because we are the better team. But I just like that the NHL is recognizing us, and I'm really debating on going. I just hate the fact that it's on the 31st. And I know a lot of you want to go too, and it's going to be so cool. I feel like we travel really well too. I mean, when the Blues came up to the East, I went to a couple games and I spoke to so many, Blues fans because I'm like, oh my God, did you guys come from St. Louis? And there's a great amount of Blues fans that just live in the East Coast too. And it's just so cool to see everybody traveling wearing the Blue Note. I mean, that's my favorite thing ever when I'm like out in public and I see somebody with the Blue Note and I'm like, one of us. So it's like, it's something that we have in common, which I love. But the NHL putting out that video just got me so hyped. So yeah, tickets go on sale soon. Also, because I'm crazy, I still can't believe it's almost our 5-year anniversary of our cup win. And it's been bothering me a lot. I'm trying not to let it bother me. And I'll tell you why it bothers me, because it makes me feel so old that it was 5 years ago. I hate the Bruins still. That hasn't changed. It was still a hand pass with the Sharks. Like, these are all things that I know. But it just sucks, right? How long ago it is. But I just can't believe it's been almost, 5 years, which is crazy, right? And, you look back at the dates, right? And the finals for us against those evil, evil Bruins began on the 27th of May, 2019. So today is the 29th, which was game 2. And it's funny, but I look back and I'm just like, you know, it's just crazy. We won that game, by the way. That was a 3-2 win. That was a great game up in Boston, but I can't believe it. 2 days after our 5-year anniversary, the tickets go on sale. I can't believe it. Like 5 years ago, we were watching the finals. That's insane. And I watched so many documentaries too on our cup run because I still can't process it. But I will never forget when we won the cup. I was sitting at home and my dad was, on the opposite side of the couch next to me because I was young. I didn't go, I was like underage. Um, I was like crying my eyes out. Like I just couldn't stop crying. And I think that it brings back so many emotions. And, you might say, oh, how do you get so emotional when it comes to hockey? How do you not get emotional when it comes to hockey? I mean, I'm watching these games now that don't even involve the Blues, and I'm like freaking out. So I think it's one of those things where hockey fans were passionate, but there's nothing more rewarding than getting our first cup win after being in the league since 1967. It's unbelievable. I love this team, and I love the Blue Note, and I love all of our history because that meant something winning the first time. Just so cool. All right. I will talk to you tomorrow. More draft talk, more, free agency and all that fun stuff. So look forward to that. And like always, let's go Blues.